Before I share my story, let me ask you, what would you do if you gave everything to make your child's wedding perfect, only to discover a secret hidden in plain sight? I thought I was just doing what any mother would do, paying for my son's big day, making sure every detail was just right. But the moment I saw that seating chart, I realized I'd spent years believing I was part of the family, never knowing what was being kept from me. This isn't just a story about money or pride. It's about the moment you decide to stop looking the other way and the courage it takes to face the truth, even when it means risking everything. So settle in, and if you've ever wondered what you'd do in my shoes, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next changed not just my family, but the way I see myself forever. The day I saw the seating chart at my son's wedding, I realized I'd spent my whole life believing I was part of the family, never knowing what was being kept from me. It started with a list. Not the kind you scribble on a napkin, but the kind you type up, print out, and tape to the fridge. My son, Matthew, was getting married, and I was determined to make it perfect. I'd saved for years, clipping coupons, skipping vacations, putting away every spare dollar so that when the time came, I could give him the wedding he deserved. Matthew's fiancée, Lauren, was lovely, smart, kind, the sort of woman who made everyone feel at ease. Her family was big and boisterous, full of laughter and stories, the kind of people who filled a room with warmth. I liked them, truly. But sometimes I felt like an outsider, a guest in my own son's life. Still, I threw myself into the planning. I met with caterers, tasted cakes, picked out flowers, and argued with the venue manager about the best way to hang the lights. I wanted everything to be just right, for Matthew, for Lauren, for the family we were building together. The week before the wedding was a blur of errands and phone calls. I spent hours on the phone with the florist, the baker, the band. I made sure the hotel rooms were booked, the transportation arranged, the welcome bags filled with snacks and handwritten notes. Lauren's mother, Diane, was everywhere offering advice, making suggestions, gently steering the conversation back to her own ideas. I tried to be gracious, to remind myself that this was her daughter's day, too. But sometimes I felt like I was being managed, like my opinions were just boxes to be checked off a list. Matthew was caught in the middle, his smile a little too tight, his eyes darting between me and Lauren, between Diane and the wedding planner. I tried to reassure him, to remind him that all I wanted was for him to be happy. The night before the wedding, we gathered at the hotel for the rehearsal dinner. The room was full of laughter and clinking glasses, the air thick with excitement and nerves. I watched Matthew and Lauren move through the crowd, their hands entwined, their faces glowing with love. After dinner, I slipped away to the ballroom, wanting to see the space one last time before the big day. The tables were set, the chairs draped in white, the centerpieces glowing with candlelight. I walked around the room, checking the place cards, making sure every detail was perfect. That's when I saw it, the seating chart, propped up on an easel by the door. I scanned the names, smiling at the familiar ones, nodding at the new ones. But then, near the head table, I saw a name I wasn't supposed to see. Rebecca Carter. My heart stopped. Rebecca was Tom's daughter from his first marriage, Matthew's half-sister. She hadn't spoken to the family in years, not since the fight over Tom's will, not since she'd accused me of taking what was hers. I stared at the name, my mind racing. Why was she here? Who had invited her? Why hadn't anyone told me? I felt a wave of anger, of betrayal, of fear. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to keep the family together, about the sacrifices I'd made, about the love I'd given. I wondered if Matthew knew, if Lauren knew, if Diane knew. I wondered if I was the only one who hadn't been told. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to let yourself be erased. If you've ever discovered a secret at the worst possible moment, or if you want to see what happens when a mother finally faces the truth, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever found out something at a family event that changed everything? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. I stood in front of the seating chart, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I read Rebecca's name over and over, as if it might disappear if I blinked hard enough. But there it was, in black and white, nestled between Lauren's cousins and Matthew's best friend from college. I felt a wave of nausea, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I tried to remember the last time I'd seen Rebecca. It had been years. At Tom's funeral, when she'd stormed out of the church, her face red with anger, her voice echoing in the hallway as she accused me of stealing her inheritance, of turning her father against her. I'd tried to reach out to make peace, but she'd never answered my calls, never replied to my letters. I told myself she was gone for good, that the wounds would heal with time. But now she was back, and no one had told me. I walked back to my hotel room in a daze, the laughter and music from the rehearsal dinner fading behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone, wondering who to call, what to say, how to make sense of what I'd found. Ruth was the first person I called. She answered on the second ring, her voice full of concern. "Anna, what's wrong?" I told her about the seating chart, about Rebecca's name, about the way I felt like a stranger at my own son's wedding. Ruth was silent for a moment, then said, "You need to talk to Matthew. You need to know the truth." I nodded, wiping my eyes. "I just don't want to ruin his day." She sighed, her voice gentle. "Sometimes the truth comes out whether we want it to or not." The next morning, I woke early, the sun just beginning to rise over the city. I made myself a cup of tea, sat by the window, and watched the world wake up. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the family we'd tried so hard to hold together. I wondered what he would say if he could see us now. His children divided, his wife alone, his legacy in pieces. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple blue dress and the pearl necklace Tom had given me on our anniversary. I pinned on my mother's brooch, the one she'd worn to every family event, and slipped on my old sandals. I looked in the mirror, smoothing my hair, telling myself it was enough. At the venue, the air was thick with excitement and nerves. Lauren's family bustled around, arranging flowers, checking the seating chart, making sure every detail was perfect. I tried to help, but Diane waved me off, her smile tight. "Relax, Anna, you've done enough. Let us take care of things." I nodded, forcing a smile, but I felt the distance between us growing with every passing hour. As guests began to arrive, I stood near the entrance, greeting friends and family, accepting hugs and compliments, trying to ignore the whispers and glances that followed me. I heard someone laugh, she, wearing that old dress again, and felt my cheeks burn. I kept my head high, my smile steady, my heart pounding. Then I saw her, Rebecca, standing at the edge of the crowd, her hair longer, her face older, but her eyes just as sharp. She caught my gaze, held it for a moment, then looked away. I realized then that sometimes the past comes back whether you're ready or not. And sometimes the only way to move forward is to face it head on. The wedding ceremony itself was beautiful, almost painfully so. The sun poured through the stained glass windows, painting the aisle in colors that shimmered on Lauren's white dress. Matthew looked nervous but happy, his hands shaking as he took Lauren's. I watched from the front row, my heart full of pride and sorrow, thinking of Tom, wishing he could see his son on this day. But even as I tried to focus on the vows, my mind kept drifting back to the seating chart, to Rebecca's name, to the way she'd looked at me in the lobby. I wondered who had invited her, if Matthew knew, if Lauren knew, if Diane had orchestrated it all behind my back. After the ceremony, as the guests spilled out into the garden for photos and cocktails, I found myself searching for Rebecca. She was always just out of reach, talking to Lauren's cousins, laughing with the bridesmaids, her eyes never quite meeting mine. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest, a sense that something was about to unravel. At the reception, the tables were set with white linens and gold-rimmed plates, the centerpieces glowing with candlelight. I found my seat near the head table, my name written in careful script on a card. I glanced at the names around me, Ruth, Mark, Sophie, Linda, but Rebecca's name was missing. I scanned the room, searching for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. As dinner was served, I tried to make conversation, to smile and laugh and play the part of the proud mother. But my mind kept drifting, my eyes scanning the crowd, my heart pounding with every passing minute. After the main course, the organizer, Mrs. Patel, stood at the microphone, her voice ringing out over the clink of glasses and the hum of conversation. Before we move on to dessert, I'd like to thank everyone who made this day possible. Weddings are a labor of love, and this one was no exception. But there's one person who went above and beyond, who gave more than anyone realizes, who made sure every detail was perfect. She paused, her eyes scanning the room, lingering on me. Anna, thank you for your generosity. Thank you for making this day possible. The room erupted in applause, the sound washing over me like a wave. I felt a flush of pride, a sense of vindication, a quiet joy. But as the applause faded, I saw Rebecca slip into the room, her eyes scanning the crowd. She caught my gaze, held it for a moment, then made her way to the bar. I watched her, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I wondered what she wanted, why she was here, what secrets she was carrying. After dessert, as the guests mingled and the band played soft music, I found Rebecca standing alone on the terrace, her arms wrapped around herself, her eyes fixed on the city lights. I hesitated, then walked over, my hands trembling. Rebecca, I said, my voice soft. She turned, her eyes wary. Anna. We stood in silence for a moment, the air thick with things unsaid. I didn't know you were coming, I said, my voice trembling. She shrugged, her gaze distant. I wasn't sure I would, but Lauren invited me. She said it was time to let go of the past. I nodded, my heart aching. I'm glad you're here. She looked at me, her eyes shining with tears. Are you? I nodded, my own eyes filling. Yes, I've missed you, Rebecca. I've missed having a family. She looked away, her voice barely more than a whisper. I'm sorry for what I said at Dad's funeral. I was angry. I was hurt. I didn't know how to forgive. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. We all make mistakes, Rebecca. What matters is that we find our way back. She smiled, relief flooding her face. I'd like that, Anna. I'd like that very much. As the night wore on, I found myself surrounded by family, old wounds healing, new bonds forming, the past slowly giving way to the future. I realized then that sometimes the hardest secrets are the ones we keep from ourselves. And sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of the pain and choosing to begin again. If you've ever had to face a family secret at the worst possible moment, or if you want to see what happens when a mother finally claims her place, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, have you ever found forgiveness in the most unexpected place? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. The reception moved on, the music growing louder, the laughter rising with every glass of champagne. I watched Matthew and Lauren dance their first dance as husband and wife, their faces glowing with happiness, their hands entwined. I felt a swell of pride, a rush of love, a bittersweet ache for all the moments Tom had missed. But even as I tried to lose myself in the celebration, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unresolved. Rebecca hovered at the edge of the room, her smile tentative, her laughter a little too forced. I saw her glance at Matthew, at Lauren, at me, her eyes full of longing and regret. After the dances, the organizer called everyone to attention for the toasts. Linda went first, her speech full of stories about childhood adventures and sibling rivalries. Ruth followed, her words warm and wise, her love for Matthew shining through every sentence. Then it was my turn. I stood, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. I looked around the room, at the faces of my family, at the friends who had become family, at the people who had laughed at my dress, and the ones who had stood by me through every storm. I want to thank everyone for being here today, I began, my voice steady. I want to thank Lauren and her family for welcoming us with open arms, for making this day so special. And I want to thank Matthew, my son, for reminding me that love is always worth fighting for. I paused, my eyes lingering on Rebecca. And I want to thank Rebecca for coming home, for reminding us that family is about forgiveness, about second chances, about finding our way back to each other. The room was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. I saw tears in Rebecca's eyes, in Ruth's, even in Linda's. After the toasts, Rebecca found me in the hallway, her arms full of flowers. "Thank you, Anna," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know if I'd ever be welcome again." I hugged her, holding her close. "You're always welcome, Rebecca. This family isn't whole without you." She smiled, her tears falling freely. "I want to make things right. I want to be part of this family again." I nodded, my heart full. "We'll figure it out together." As the night wore on, I found myself surrounded by laughter and music, by the warmth of family, by the hope of new beginnings. I realized then that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go of the past and choosing to begin again. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is forgive. If you've ever had to forgive someone who hurt you, or if you want to see what happens when a family finally comes together, don't forget to like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what's the hardest thing you've ever had to forgive? I read every story, and you never know who you might help by sharing. The morning after the wedding, I woke to the sound of rain tapping against the hotel window. The celebration was over, the guests gone, the ballroom empty except for a few stray balloons and the lingering scent of roses. I sat on the edge of the bed, my blue dress draped over the chair, my mother's brooch still pinned to the collar. I thought about the night before, about Rebecca's tears, about Matthew's smile, about the way the family had come together, if only for a moment. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. I thought about Tom, about the life we'd built, about the family we'd tried so hard to hold together. I wondered what he would say if he could see us now. His children reunited, his wife finally seen, his legacy alive in the laughter and love that filled the room. Later that morning, I met Ruth for breakfast at a little cafe near the hotel. We sat by the window, sipping coffee, sharing stories, letting the quiet comfort of sisterhood fill the spaces between us. "You did it, Anna," Ruth said, her voice full of pride. "You brought the family back together." I smiled, my heart full. I didn't do it alone. It took all of us. It took forgiveness and patience and a lot of love. She nodded, her eyes shining. "That's what family is, Anna. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing up again and again, no matter how many times you're hurt." I reached for her hand, squeezing it tight. "Thank you, Ruth, for always being there, for always believing in me." She smiled, her grip strong. "Always, Anna, always." After breakfast, I walked through the city, the rain softening to a gentle mist. I thought about the reunion, about the secrets that had come to light, about the way the family had changed in a single evening. I realized that sometimes the truth comes out when you least expect it, and that when it does, it has the power to heal old wounds and build new bridges. I stopped by the florist and bought a bouquet of wildflowers, the colors bright and bold against the gray sky. I carried them to the cemetery, to Tom's grave, and sat for a while, telling him about the wedding, about Rebecca, about the way the family had come together. "I wish you could have been there, Tom," I whispered, my voice trembling. "But I know you were watching, I know you're proud." That afternoon, I returned to the hotel to help Lauren and Matthew pack up the last of the decorations. Lauren hugged me, her eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Anna. We couldn't have done it without you." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're family now, Lauren. I'd do anything for you." Matthew hugged me, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you, Mom. Thank you for making this day so special." I hugged him back, my heart overflowing. "I love you too, Matthew, always." As I walked home under the clearing sky, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply showing up, again and again, no matter how many times you're overlooked. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is let your actions speak for themselves. The days after the wedding felt like a gentle exhale. The tension that had built up over years of misunderstandings and unspoken hurts seemed to dissolve, replaced by a new kind of peace. I found myself smiling more, laughing more, feeling lighter than I had in years. I realized that the reunion, the wedding, the announcement, everything had been a turning point, a chance to start over. Rebecca called me a few days later, her voice tentative but hopeful. Anna, I just wanted to say thank you for forgiving me, for letting me come back. I smiled, my heart full. Your family, Rebecca, you always have been. I'm glad you're home. She laughed, relief in her voice. I want to make things right. I want to be part of the family again. I nodded, tears in my eyes. We'll figure it out together. Ruth and I started a new tradition, Sunday dinners at my house. Sometimes it was just the two of us. Sometimes Mark and Sophie joined. Sometimes Rebecca brought her children. The table was always full, the conversation easy, the laughter genuine. I found myself looking forward to those evenings, to the warmth of shared meals, to the comfort of being seen. Sophie became my shadow, following me through the garden, helping me bake, curling up beside me with a book in her lap. She asked questions about Tom, about my childhood, about the family stories I'd never told before. I realized then that I was passing on more than recipes and traditions. I was passing on a sense of belonging, a sense of home. One afternoon, as we picked strawberries in the garden, Sophie looked up at me, her eyes serious. Grandma, do you ever wish you had more? More money, more clothes, a bigger house? I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Sometimes, sweetheart, but then I remember what I do have, family, friends, a home full of love. That's more than enough for me. She nodded, her face thoughtful. I think you're the richest person I know. I hugged her, my heart full. Me too, Sophie, me too. Linda and I grew closer, our old rivalry replaced by a new understanding. She started asking for my advice, inviting me to help plan family events, including me in decisions big and small. I saw the effort she made, the way she tried to make amends, the way she listened when I spoke. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Linda turned to me, her voice soft. Thank you for forgiving me, Anna. I know I haven't always been kind. I wanted to be seen, too. I squeezed her hand, my own eyes shining. We all want to be seen, Linda. We all want to matter. She smiled, relief flooding her face. I'm glad we have each other. Mark and Jenna made changes, too. They started inviting me to more family outings, asking for my opinion, making space for me in their lives. Mark apologized again, his words sincere, his actions even more so. He helped me with chores, called just to check in, made sure I knew I was loved. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is let people back in after they've hurt you. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is giving them a second chance. As the seasons changed, so did my family. We grew closer, stronger, more connected. The wounds of the past faded, replaced by new memories, new traditions, new hope. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. As the months passed, the changes in my family became more real. The Sunday dinners became a ritual, a time for laughter and stories, for sharing burdens and celebrating joys. I found myself looking forward to those evenings, to the warmth of Sophie's hugs, to the sound of Ruth's laughter, to the quiet moments when Rebecca would linger after everyone else had gone, helping me wash dishes and talking about her life. Rebecca and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, one conversation at a time. She told me about her struggles, about the years she'd spent feeling lost and angry, about the pain of losing her father and feeling shut out of the family. I listened, my heart aching for the girl she'd been, the woman she was becoming. I always thought you hated me, she confessed one night, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you wanted me gone. I shook my head, tears in my eyes. I never hated you, Rebecca. I was just trying to hold everything together. I didn't know how to reach you. She hugged me, her arms tight around my shoulders. Thank you for not giving up on me. Mark and Jenna continued to make space for me in their lives. They invited me to Sophie's soccer games, to school plays, to family picnics in the park. Mark called just to check in, to ask for advice, to tell me he loved me. Jenna started asking for my recipes, for my help with the garden, for my opinion on everything from paint colors to parenting. I realized then that sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is let people back in after they've hurt you. And sometimes, The greatest act of love is giving them a second chance. Sophie grew taller, braver, more confident. She started writing stories, drawing pictures, sharing her dreams with me. She told me she wanted to be a writer, to tell stories that made people feel seen and loved. "You're my inspiration, Grandma," she said one afternoon, her eyes shining. "You taught me that it's okay to be different, that it's okay to be yourself." I hugged her, my heart full. "You're my inspiration too, Sophie. You remind me every day that love is stronger than anything." Ruth and I grew closer, our bond deepening with every shared meal, every late-night conversation, every moment of laughter and tears. We talked about the past, about the future, about the ways we'd both changed. I realized then that the legacy I was leaving wasn't about money or possessions. It was about resilience, about forgiveness, about the quiet strength that comes from loving and being loved. As the seasons changed, so did my family. We grew closer, stronger, more connected. The wounds of the past faded, replaced by new memories, new traditions, new hope. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing to move forward together. And I promised myself that, whatever happened next, I would never let myself be erased. Sometimes, the people who judge us the most are the ones who need our quiet strength the most. I never imagined my own family would laugh at my old dress, or that it would take a single moment of truth to remind them who had been holding them together all along. But life has a way of showing us that our worth isn't measured by appearances, but by the love and resilience we bring to every table, no matter what we're wearing. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or if you've ever had to wait for your moment to be seen, I hope you know you're not alone. I know what it's like to sit in the quiet after everyone's gone, to wonder if you did enough, if you loved enough, if you mattered enough. I know what it's like to feel the ache of old wounds and the hope of new beginnings, to want to hold on and let go at the same time. But I also know that healing is possible. That courage is a choice you make every day, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in ways that change everything. I know that you can be overlooked and still be the heart of your family, that you can be pushed aside and still come back stronger, that you can be laughed at and still be the one who brings everyone together. Would you have spoken up, or would you have stayed silent for the sake of peace? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story because sometimes sharing our pain is the first step toward healing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again. And if you want to see what happens when a woman finally chooses herself, or if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because the next story might just be the one you need.